TGIF from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Friday, March 27th. For the final time this week, I'll ask, would you make a donation to KUOW? Your donations are what power the show. Literally, 98% of our station's budget is from listeners and local businesses. End your week with a $5 a month donation or whatever gift you can give. The link to give now is in our show notes, and thank you so much. In news today, Seattle police are staffing up ahead of a rally against the policies of Donald Trump tomorrow. The event's expected to draw tens of thousands of people to Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Demonstrators are then expected to march to Seattle Center. It's the third ever nationwide day of protest under the banner No Kings. Tyrone Davis is an assistant chief at the Seattle Police Department, and he says police are working with organizers to help the event go smoothly.
So we're going to do what we can to help make sure that everyone is safe. And one of the things we're going to do is have a bunch of personnel on hand ready to deal with any issues that may rise up. But if that doesn't happen, great, that's our goal, right?
A counter demonstration is planned at the state capitol in Olympia. The Washington State Republican Party says they are protesting Governor Bob Ferguson's support for the so-called millionaire's tax. The governor's expected to sign the bill into law on Monday. Lawsuit just in. Washington's Attorney General says the online prediction market Kalshi is an illegal betting platform, and it's breaking state laws against online gambling. Today, AG Nick Brown announced his office is suing Kalshi. Kalshi allows users to predict the outcomes of politics, sports, entertainment, the climate, even the outcome of the war against Iran. Sports betting is illegal in Washington unless it happens at a tribal casino or mobile platforms hosted on reservations. We're also tracking in top stories, local TSA workers will soon start getting paid again. Today, President Trump signed an executive order to resume payments. It comes after the U.S. Senate passed a measure to pay TSA workers, which Republicans in the House rejected because the bill did not include funding for ICE or Border Patrol. Meanwhile, donors have raised more than $160,000 to help TSA workers at SeaTac Airport who've gone without paychecks for more than 40 days. Monday's an historic moment for Washington, one of the few states without an income tax until now. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson's expected to sign a tax on high earners on Monday. State government reporter Sarah Mises-Tan has more.
The so-called millionaire's tax would take a 9.9% cut of household income over $1 million. Less than 1% of residents would pay. The tax would fund state services and other items like education programs, free school meals, and tax breaks for low-income people. It would take effect in 2029. Democrats who supported the bill say Washington's tax code currently overburdens low-income households, and a tax on the wealthy could be a step toward reversing this. Opponents say the measure violates the state constitution, and they worry that Democrat lawmakers will eventually expand the tax to encompass all income brackets, not just the highest ones. Republicans are promising lawsuits and a ballot initiative to repeal the measure. In Olympia, I'm Sarah Mises-Tan.
Coming to a Pike Place market near you, traffic barriers. The city of Seattle could start installing temporary barriers in front of the market as soon as next month. The goal is to see what works best for safety before people from around the world travel here for the Men's Soccer World Cup in June. The new temporary barriers could also lay the groundwork for long-term installations. In environment news today, new research from the University of Washington finds climate change is making avalanches riskier in parts of the Pacific Northwest. As winters get warmer, rain falling on snow can create ice crusts and uneven layers. That can cause what's called wet slab avalanches. PhD student Clinton Alden is the study's lead author.
More typical avalanches you see with just fresh snowfall, those are a lot easier to mitigate with explosives for ski areas and highways, but these wet slab avalanches filling on these melt freeze crusts, it's kind of just a sit and wait type thing. You can't mitigate as effectively.
Alden says colder regions like parts of eastern Washington, Idaho, and Montana have a higher risk of those type of avalanches. The mystery orcas are back in town. A trio of unidentified orcas that had never been observed in the Northwest showed up earlier this month. They showed up again this week, cruising along the downtown Seattle waterfront in Elliott Bay. Where they hail from is still unknown, though researchers determined these orcas had been seen once before in Anchorage. Vessels are required to stay at least 200 yards away. And before we get to our feature story, it's tulip time, folks. The Skagit Valley Tulip Festival is now underway. Rosengard, Tulip Valley Farms, and Garden Rosalyn opened to visitors this week, and Tulip Town opens up tomorrow morning. The festival usually runs through April. Now, our feature story today. The Middle East war is affecting consumers at the gas pump. But for farmers, it's not just the price of fuel, but fertilizer too. And that could affect what we all pay at the grocery store. Ruby DeLuna has been reporting on this and talked with KUOW's Kim Malcolm.
Ruby, hi.
Hi, Kim.
I know you've been talking to farmers. What are they telling you?
Yeah, that's right. They are worried and they're paying close attention to what's happening in the Middle East. I spoke with Andrew Albert, a third-generation farmer in Arlington, Washington. He grows hay, wheat, corn, and cabbage on his 1,400-acre farm. Now, at the moment, there's not much activity in the fields, but as he gets ready for the planting season, he's keeping track of fuel prices. He notes that diesel already costs $2 more per gallon than before the war, an all-time record, according to AAA. Now, in a month or two, when the farm work starts, that's when he'll start to feel it.
An average large tractor would burn between 10 and 15 gallons an hour, and you figure if we're running up to 15, 20 tractors at a time in our busiest time for a few weeks in the spring, and then with trucks running at the same time, it's easy several thousand gallons a week.
Well, that adds up.
It does. And it's not just fuel. He worries the war will raise the cost of farm supplies like twine, the plastic to wrap bale, and fertilizer.
The people that we deal with, they pre-buy, so they have already filled their barns with the fertilizer that will probably hopefully get us most of the way through the year. I met with one of them yesterday and they said they have contracts that might even go through the full year. After that, if we don't see a reduction in the price of oil, then it's going to get real ugly on the fertilizer side.
Indeed, fertilizer in particular is a big concern. About a third of the world's fertilizer trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping route. As you know, that waterway has been disrupted since the war began.
And Ruby, all this is happening at a time when you've reported the industry is already struggling.
That's right. Farmers have complained they've been operating under a tough economic environment that includes pressures like rising labor costs and even before the Iran conflict, high fuel prices stemming from the Washington Climate Commitment Act. It's been so tough that some have quit. And it's not just farms that have shuttered. Food processing plants and other businesses that support the industry have closed too. According to the U.S. Agriculture Department, Washington lost more than $1 billion in farm revenue between 2023 and 2024.
Okay, can you connect the dots for us? How do higher gas prices have ripple effects on consumers?
Well, simply put, it means higher food prices. But farmers are just at the front end of the supply chain. I spoke with Joe Phillips, professor of economics at Seattle University.
In general, farmers can't control prices, influence prices. They're price takers. If you think about the way the food supply chain works, a very small proportion of the cost of the final item that you purchase is actually due to the ingredients.
Okay, so in other words, the raw ingredient that farmers harvest, that's just one piece of the supply chain puzzle?
That's right. And depending on how many stops those items will make on their way to grocery shelves, each stop adds up.
You have to think about all the different production costs, the transportation costs, the selling costs that just add up in many ways a much bigger part of the price that a consumer pays.
Phillips adds those costs may vary depending on the product.
Ruby, if these price increases take a while to be felt in the food production system, how long do you think we're going to feel them?
Well, the general sentiment is the extent of the price increase will also depend on how long the conflict lasts.
Food reporter Ruby DeLuna talking with KUOW's Kim Malcolm. Next week on Seattle Now, it's opening week for the light rail across Lake Washington. It took decades to get here. One challenge was figuring out how to connect the tracks that float to the stationary tracks on land.
That transition is something that we have spent years working on from an engineering standpoint. Frankly, it is the centerpiece of the engineering marvel that is light rail being implemented for the first time on a floating bridge.
Hear more Monday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. The interview in today's episode was produced by John O'Brien. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. Have a great weekend.